Hi, cozy home bakers. Today I'm in the kitchen making hot cross buns. There are a few things that represent Easter in my kitchen, and these hot cross buns are definitely on that list. Warm, fragrant spices, sweet, sticky raisins, and a sweet, delicate glaze encrusting each golden bun. These old-fashioned hot cross buns are an Easter treat that everyone looks forward to in our house. They're actually pretty fun to make, and the kids love getting involved, especially for crossing and glazing the buns. So let's get into the kitchen. This is how I make traditional hot cross buns. I'm going to start this recipe with the fragrant spiced bread dough. In the bowl of a stand mixer or in a large bowl if you're making this recipe by hand, stir together 1 cup of warm milk and a half a cup of sugar. Once the sugar is dissolved, I'm going to sprinkle over top 2¼ teaspoons or 1 packet of dry active yeast. Set this aside for the yeast to soften and become foamy, which should take about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm making an enriched dough here today, so I'm going to mix in 2 tablespoons of softened butter and crack in 1 egg. Sprinkle in a half a teaspoon of salt and some fragrant spices. For my hot cross buns, I'm adding in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground clove, and a half a teaspoon of cardamom. Some recipes for these buns call for candied citrus peel, but I'm going to swap that out in my recipe for fresh orange zest, which also complements the cardamom and gives it a soft, sweet citrus taste. Next, I'm going to mix in 3½ cups of all-purpose flour. Add in a half a cup of raisins and then mix and knead until you have a smooth dough. This takes about 5 minutes in the stand mixer or 8 minutes if you're kneading the dough by hand. When it's done, the dough should be smooth, elastic, and clean the sides of the bowl. Now I'm going to cover the dough with a damp kitchen towel, or you could use plastic wrap, and allow it to rise in a warm place until doubled in bulk. And since it is an enriched dough, it takes a little longer for the yeast to puff up all those rich ingredients. For me, it was about 2 hours. Tip the risen dough out onto a lightly floured surface and split it into 12 equal pieces. I'm going to shape each into a round dough ball. I do this by flattening the dough out and then folding it over onto itself all the way around the circumference of the dough. Then just turn the little dough ball over and roll and tighten it to the counter to create the smooth bun shape. Continue to do this with the rest of the dough until you have 12 as equal as possible dough balls. Now I can place the little buns into a rectangular casserole dish that I've already greased with butter. The buns should be close together but not squished since they still need to rise and puff up before going into the oven. But for now, they're going to get covered and allow them to rise in a warm place until they're just about doubled again, which for me was about 1½ hours. All the little buns are nicely puffed up, but just before going into the oven, I'm going to prepare the mixture for the crosses. In a small bowl, mix together 2 tablespoons of flour with about 2 tablespoons of water. Stir this together until you have a smooth pancake-like batter. If it's too runny, add a little more flour, and if it's too thick, thin it with a little bit of water. It should be a little runny but thick enough to hold its shape when used to draw a cross on top of each bun. To make the cross on top of each bun, you can either carefully drizzle a cross shape with a spoon or use a piping bag to quickly pipe the crosses over the top of the buns, which is what I'm going to do with mine. And if you don't have any piping bags at home, you can use a sealable sandwich bag and just cut a hole in the corner. And my buns are ready to go into my preheated 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius oven and bake for 18 to 20 minutes or until golden brown. Meanwhile, as my buns are baking, I'm going to prepare the glaze. This step is optional, but it does give each bun a lovely shine and delicate sweetness, making them a true treat. The glaze is going to go onto the buns fresh out of the oven while they're still warm. In a medium bowl, mix together 1½ cups of icing sugar, 2 tablespoons of milk, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Mix this until you have a smooth, slightly runny glaze. As soon as the hot buns come out of the oven, brush the glaze on top with a pastry brush. If you don't have a brush, you can just as easily use a spoon to drop a little on each bun and smooth it out. At first, the glaze will look a little milky, but will settle with the warmth to a thin, translucent shell that's going to encrust each bun. I'm going to let these cool slightly and then they're ready to serve and enjoy. These super flavorful hot cross buns can be enjoyed just as they are, especially since this recipe includes a delicious sweet glaze on top. Traditionally, the buns are split in half, buttered, and eaten warm and fresh. But if you're looking for a more decadent treat, try spreading fruit preserves along with the melty butter. Enjoy! If you're a fan of deliciously simple vintage recipes and old-fashioned skills, then you'll want to check out this next video. Thanks for stopping by.